Short answer: maritime trade. They were the first primarily maritime trade culture. This video is done at request from a viewer of my very first video, Why Were the Ancient Greeks Seafaring People? I am very happy to do these requests, and a number of my videos were inspired by requests, and they often are those that do very well, so please make requests, they are a great inspiration. Imagine you are in one of the valleys of the Levant, in the bustling port of either Sidon or Tyre, the main Phoenician cities. The harbor hums with activity, ships are loaded and unloaded. This is the crossroad of Great Egypt to the south, and inland across the Damascus oasis comes Mesopotamia and its great cities. Here merchandise change hands and cultural exchange happens. Ships come in with the tin and copper brought from far-off lands to be used for the fabrication of bronze, the defining metal of the early trade network. The production of bronze required a large and complex trade network to bring all the necessities for its production together, and this was one of the primary roles filled out by the Phoenicians. They brought in the tin and copper from afar to the advanced cultures in Egypt and Mesopotamia that could produce bronze, and brought back the finished products. Thus they helped spread bronze far from the cultures capable of producing it. But how come the Phoenicians came to fill out this role as maritime middlemen? The short answer to this is location, location, location. The Phoenicians developed their maritime trade culture because it was possible for them to do so. They were situated in what is today Lebanon and northern Israel on the Levantian coast. This is where the fertile crescent of the Middle East meets the Mediterranean, meaning that the fertile hinterlands go north of the deserts to reach the Damascus oasis and go across the Levantian mountains, and the fertile crescent continues down on the western side of the desert along the coast. This means that the region inhabited by the Phoenicians was the first place where caravans from Mesopotamia could be loaded from animal to ship. It would be possible to continue on land to Egypt, but a ship carries more than a camel or mule, making it more cost-effective. Another great boon of the Lebanese mountains were the trees that grew on the slopes of the mountains. This gave access to the wood that is the most essential part of shipbuilding, making it possible for the early Phoenicians to build their ships from native sources, preventing a chicken and egg problem where you need the ships to get the wood needed to build the ships. From this starting point, the Phoenicians would build a maritime trade network connecting Egypt, Greece, and the cultures of the Mesopotamian region. The Phoenicians thus used the simple fact that they had access to the sea to become the transmitters of culture between Egypt, Mesopotamia, and archaic Greece. It was not as much that a culture like Egypt did not have maritime access and shipbuilding capacity, it was that the Egyptian lands in themselves provided ample opportunity for expansion of activity internally, while for the Phoenicians it was the sea that provided opportunity. What significantly divided the origin of Greek and Phoenician maritime expansion was that the Greeks originally were not situated at the intersection of the trade route between advanced cultures. The early Greek cultures were significantly seeded by the Phoenicians arriving as they expanded across the Mediterranean, as they searched for the raw materials requested by the cultures of Egypt and the Fertile Crescent. This being mainly, but not exclusively, the tin and copper needed to produce bronze. To trade for these raw materials, the Phoenicians brought along the bronze products and some products of their own making, like purple cloth and dye, which earned them their Greek name, Phoenicia, the purple people. Indeed, the Phoenicians seeded the Greeks with much of what came to define classical Greece, like the alphabet, and, for maritime purposes, the bireme and trireme. Thus, the Phoenicians, through their contact with early Greece, ended up helping create what would become their main maritime rival. It was not a strict rivalry, as Phoenicians and Greeks traded with each other, but in places they became at odds, especially in southern Italy and on Sicily, where their colonies collided. Aside from reaching Greece along the southern coast of today's Turkey, the Phoenicians mainly sailed along the coast of North Africa, establishing colonies like Carthage in Tunisia that would in the end outshine the mother cities. The Greeks meanwhile mainly spread to Italy, southern France and the Black Sea. Conflict mainly arose in Spain and Sicily, where the Greeks came from the north to establish colonies, while the Phoenicians came from the south, establishing the earliest north-south divide in the Mediterranean. This divide would continue in the clash between Rome and Carthage. Only after the Roman victory, until the fall of Rome, would this divide be negated until the rise of the caliphates, which redrew the divide. In the east, in the Phoenician homelands, they would become vassals of the Persians and thus participate in the naval defeat of the Persians against the Greeks at Salamis and finally come under Greek Macedonian control during the Hellenistic period. The region would remain a trade hub and experience a new golden age during the early Islamic Caliphate, but the city-states would not again have the same position and influence that they had during their independence in the Phoenician trade period, when the Mediterranean was theirs.